City Council meeting. I will call the meeting to order and ask Nicole to take roll call, please.
Blake? Here. Carberry Montgomery? Here. Kroll? Here. McBurney? Here. Obrecht?
Here.
Thank you.
Please stand as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Urbandale is a national leader in character counts, endeavoring at all times to promote and model the principles of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. In conducting tonight's meeting, we expect that all participants will act in a respectful manner consistent with these principles. Item 2 is to approve the agenda. I'll ask for a motion in a second. Motion by Blake, second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. Okay, that passes. Item 3, presentations. First, we have a presentation regarding the ESGR Patriot Award. And sir, I'll introduce you if you want to, acknowledge you if you want to come up and start us off.
Thank you. Well, with your indulgence, let me just take a second to set this up. My name is Jim Freeze. I'm a 31-year veteran of the Iowa National Guard, but today I'm representing an organization called ESGR. That's Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve, which is an office within the United States Department of Defense. You may not know this, but success of the active duty military is dependent upon success of the National Guard and the Reserves. And success of the National Guard and Reserves is dependent upon employers providing good support for their employees who are members of Reserve Component. Part of ESGR's mission is to recognize those employers that really go above and beyond the call in providing this type of support, which brings us here today. Chief Jerry Holt and Lieutenant Corey McCumber. Front and center, please, if you don't mind.
The floor is yours.
We were nominated for the Patriot Award by Rob Zahn, who's a staff sergeant in the Iowa Army National Guard. Now, for those of you not familiar, the Patriot Award is a visible recognition of an employer or a supervisor providing outstanding support for their employees who are members of Reserve Component. Let me just share with you part of the nomination paperwork that Rob submitted trying to get this nice award approved by the Department of Defense. Rob writes, Fire Chief Jerry Holt and Lieutenant Corey McCumber have been incredibly supportive of my service in the Iowa Army National Guard. They've been flexible with last-minute changes and utilized my military skill set as a combat medic to enhance the services we provide. On my recent deployment to Kosovo, they kept in frequent contact with me and made sure I was informed about current events at the department. They also sent several care packages and checked in with my family to make sure they were doing okay. They've also been very supportive of other employees in the reserves, including some who have deployed. They definitely deserve the picture. They definitely do. That's big, it really is. So I really want to thank you for that type of leadership, that type of support that allows Rob to be successful in his military career. I'm guessing allows all your employees to be successful, so thanks for that. Also, while I have the floor, I wanted to thank Rob for a couple things. First, I want to thank him for his service to this great country. You may not be aware of this also, but as a part-time member of the National Guard, he's required to maintain the same standards, same high standards as his full-time active duty counterparts. Same standards as far as qualifications in his military occupational specialty. Same standards as far as professional military education. The same standards as far as physical fitness. I think for many, that's not because they do it, so I appreciate it. Also, I want to thank Rob for recognizing the important role that your employer plays in the success of your career. So, good on you. So with that, it is my honor, on behalf of the Iowa National Committees for ESGR, to present this paper. Rob, did you have anything that you wanted to say before we get in here?
I just want to reiterate what was said about the outstanding support I got from Chief Wolf, Lieutenant Bakenumber in the back, driver engineer Drew Stiles, Alden Ramich, who can't be here tonight, and then Captain Jintotsi, fire medic Brad Kirchner, fire medic Jordan Tennyson, fire medic Barry Burt, who brought one of our engines to the welcome home. And were some of the first people that greeted me upon my return to Iowa from Kosovo. I just can't say enough about this great organization and the great people that I work with.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for recognizing our chief and lieutenant, and Rob, thank you for your service to not only our community, but to our country as well. So thank you very much. That's great. All right, we'll move on. I would like to read a proclamation for American Clean Power Week. Whereas clean energy technologies consisting of land and offshore wind, solar, and energy storage accounts for 14% of the nation's electricity generated and provides power to over 57.8 million homes nationally. And whereas in Iowa, clean energy technologies that provide over 5,200 full-time jobs, have provided over $23 billion in capital investment, produce 59.5% of the state's electricity, and provide $57.4 million in annual state and local tax payments. Now therefore, I, Robert Andweg, Mayor of the City of Urbandale, on behalf of the Urbandale City Council, do hereby recognize August 15 through 19, 2022 as American Clean Power Week and encourage the community to learn more about the impact of the clean energy technologies sector. I'm happy to sign that, and we will, certainly this is consistent with the goals of the council as far as promoting clean energy, and so we will hope that folks learn about this. Larry, do you want to provide any update on the solar, where we are on solar right now?
Yeah, certainly. We're at 138 kilowatts that have actually been purchased and installed. So we're getting closer to that 350 mark. Still have a little bit of time left for folks that want to sign up. We do have until I believe it's August 20th to get your proposal in. And then, yeah, it's right now they have enough staff available through one source to ensure that everything is installed before the end of the year to qualify for the tax credits. So,
Okay, great, thank you.
moving right along.
All right, moving on then to item 3.3, and that is a presentation regarding the I-3580 and Hickman Road Interchange Reconstruction Corridor Planning Update. And Sean Larson will introduce you as our Director of Engineering and Public Works to kick us off.
Right, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. The Hickman Interchange project is a joint project with the City of Urbandale, Clive, and the Iowa DOT. Tonight, we're gonna give you an update on the latest items within the interchange project related to like bicycles and pedestrian accommodations or aesthetics and funding options. So tonight, to do that update, we have Snyder and Associates here with us. We have Nate Karhoff, Wade Griman, and Tim West, so they'll be running through the presentation for you and be glad to answer any questions you have at the end.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. As John mentioned, I'm Nathan Karhoff with Snyder Associates. I'm the project manager for the I-3580 Hickman Road Interchange Reconstruction Project. We do have colleagues, my colleagues here tonight to talk about the corridor planning efforts that have kind of culminated in concert with the preliminary design efforts of the interchange itself. And I'll let them do a brief introduction as we hand off the various aspects of this presentation. I do ask that if you have any questions, I'd like to have this be more of a discussion than a presentation. So if you have any questions or comments throughout, please feel free to ask those. Before we get into the corridor planning efforts, I'd like to talk a little bit about kind of the big picture of the interchange project itself. It does include reconstruction of the interchange from its current standard diamond to a diverging diamond interchange. If you're not familiar with that term, if you've traveled on I-80 at Grand Prairie Parkway interchange, that's a divergent diamond. And a very recent opening of in Ankeny at the I-35 and First Street interchange is also a divergent diamond. So this will be the fourth one in Iowa. There's another one planned for over in Coralville that will be constructed just prior to this one. Along with the interchange reconstruction, there is capacity improvements along the interstate from University to Douglas. So widening and reconstruction of the basic lanes, as well as widening to accommodate a 12-lane section in between Douglas and University. Hickman Road will be widened to accommodate 3 lanes in each direction. And there's also improvements at the intersection with 111th and at the Lifetime Fitness/Love's entrance. Over the past 7 months, we've been working with the City of Urbandale and City of Clive staff on the corridor planning efforts that John mentioned. And those do include land use planning, access management, bicycle and pedestrian accommodations, aesthetics, stormwater management, and project cost and funding strategy. I want to talk first about land use planning. Throughout the design life of this interchange, it's likely that land use could change. Early on, it was identified that really the majority of the corridor is already fully built out and is not likely to actually have a wholesale change in land use, with the exception of the southwest quadrant, if you will, south of Hickman from 128th to the interstate. If you take into account the floodplain and floodway of Walnut Creek, as well as required setbacks, this area represents 56 acres of developable area. And from that, we developed a handful of scenarios to look at redevelopment ranging from a mix of commercial and residential development. Ultimately, the final concept represents kind of the highest and best land use of the land, and that would be the entire 56 acres being redeveloped into a high-density commercial. In the bottom left, you'll see kind of the assumed mix of businesses that would be in that area. And to give you an idea of the traffic volume changes, currently today, that area generates about 6,000 vehicles per day. And if this area were to redevelop, it would go to a little over 27,000 vehicles per day. So this planning for land use changes is very important as we develop the interchange. We don't want anything designed at the interchange that would hinder further development in the corridor. City of Clive and Urbandale and the DOT have an agreement in place for access management throughout the corridor from the interchange over to Alice's Road. Using the traffic data, the traffic generated from the potential redevelopment, we focused our efforts on the access management plan from 128th to the interstate, and in order to handle the additional traffic that could be generated, the existing restricted access at the Walnut Creek United Methodist Church would need to be changed to a fully signalized intersection. These exhibits have been provided to the cities and the DOT to renegotiate and update the access management agreement in accordance with our corridor planning efforts. Next, I do want to talk about the bicycle and pedestrian improvements. Currently, there aren't any on Hickman Road in this corridor, and reconstruction of the interchange does allow us the opportunity to provide those facilities. A typical pedestrian accommodation would include at-grade facilities, and with a diverging diamond interchange, similar to the others that have been built, pedestrians would travel through the intersection or interchange, crossing at 4 different at-grade crossings into the center before crossing back out. Using the at-grade facility as kind of the base, we looked at several different options for a grade-separated facility. The exhibit here kind of shows the final preferred concept, which includes a 10-foot wide trail on the north side of Hickman Road. See if the mouse works. Yeah, so traveling west to east at the Lifetime Fitness entrance, it would be your typical at-grade facility. As you travel east, the grade raises in elevation to provide a pedestrian bridge over the southbound off-ramp. From there, pedestrians will travel through a pedestrian underpass underneath the interstate. back up and over a similar pedestrian bridge over the northbound on-ramp. And from there, the grade transitions back to an at-grade facility at 111th Street. On Hickman itself, crossing Hickman Road itself also presents a challenge. So we have developed a concept that would allow pedestrians to travel underneath Hickman Road, a couple hundred feet east of the Lifetime Fitness entrance. From there, a 10-foot wide trail would make a connection down to the Clive Greenbelt Trail along the southbound on-ramp.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So going east on Hickman on the north side, will there be any way at that light there going into Living History Farms machine shed for people to cross the street? Because like further down here is like the Clive Aquatic Center and the library, which would be key access points, I would think, for people to get on with their bikes or walking.
Yeah, so at 111th, there'll be a full at-grade crossing of Hickman. The signals will be designed to accommodate.
And 111th is there where Starbucks, is that what street it is?
Correct, yes. There'll be a single crossing on the west leg of that.
Okay,
And
fantastic.
then if you're, I'm not sure, can you guys see my mouse?
We
Okay,
can.
great. Wasn't sure if you could, there'd be a single crossing of Hickman and then a single crossing of 111th. And that's to channel the pedestrians to one crossing versus two to help improve safety.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure that should people want to get to the pool and the library down there, that they have access. Because once you get south of Hickman, then you can, the sidewalks are there, but not, I don't know if I'd want to cross Hickman right now.
Right.
If you're coming from the west, you probably actually go under Hickman and go along the west side there.
Yeah, that would also be an option,
The bike trail.
would be to cross under and travel down and hook up with the existing Clive Greenbelt Trail.
That takes
Oh.
away to the.
Oh, and go under there.
Yeah.
That shows my true lack of knowledge on this trail here, because my kids have been on it, but I haven't. So,
Similarly, at the Lifetime Fitness entrance, there will be a dedicated crossing, at-grade crossing, so the signals will be designed to accommodate that too. But yeah, your best bet would be to use the grade-separated facility to provide a more comfortable and safer route through the interchange.
thank you.
You're welcome. With that, I'd like Tim West to come up and talk about the aesthetics and landscaping gateway improvements that are associated with the interchange as well.
Good evening. My name is Tim West with Snyder and Associates. I'm a landscape architect and been working on this with part of the team on the aesthetics. This image shows the master plan ultimately that we landed on after a lot of committee work and concept work. This is really acting as a transportation gateway to two different communities, Clive and Urbandale. So there's some challenges associated with that when we want to try to combine some aesthetic themes into one area which is served by two different communities. So we start to take a look at different aspects like color, materials, and repeating tones and themes that go through each community and try to combine that into some design alternatives. This image kind of shows a bunch of the background work that we did. The top row kind of shows some sampling of different types of existing themes, colors, materials that both communities utilize in their gateway features existing. The middle one kind of shows through our study of inspirational type images that start to set a tone for how far do you want to go with decorative lighting, public art, things of that nature, and start to work those questions in with the committee so that we can understand what level of commitment they'd like to make to those different enhancements. And then we also review some of the past planning and recent planning documents to understand where is the city focusing their marketing and improvement dollars so that we can make sure that we're enhancing the interchange to reflect some of those goals that are part of your current planning. So for example, Clive has got some interest in enhancing the Oxbows in the Clive Greenbelt area, which they typically would do in most types of improvements through there. We want to make sure that we focus on that corridor as well as it goes through the Urbandale area. And then the urban loop is another example of a planning document that we reviewed to make sure that we understand some of those goals as we move forward. Next, we kind of walk through other potential themes that might be apparent or less apparent that we research. So for example, there might be some cultural or natural themes such as the Monarch Highway that's located on the top right. We researched that a little bit to see if that's a theme that the committee or the communities are interested in. The Grand Army of the Republic Highway associated with Highway 6 might be another one. We explored a lot of those with the committee and with our own team and started to identify some potential opportunities for themes. Also took a look at some opportunities for enhancements as the interchange is changing through construction materials or different types of separations with retaining walls, overpasses, et cetera. So you can see there's some design work on how do we pull different types of patterns or themes. Maybe we utilize some wall panels for looking for opportunity for theming and aesthetics. We boiled this down to 3 different themes. The first one focuses on kind of more of a creek pathway, which focuses on an at-grade crossing through the median, the center medians, and has kind of a curvilinear creek motif to it. You'll see there's a couple of photos there of some enhanced lighting that would be incorporated into any types of vertical elements that we might have for decorative columns, et cetera. This also started to kind of introduce the walnut tree leaflet as a potential design motif, which you'll see later in the final master plan. The middle concept focused a little bit more on more of a ribboning pattern where we had more monolithic vertical elements in the medians. Also focused on some undulating concrete walls and different separations for visual interest, maybe some separation of traffic light, headlights, things of that nature. And then the last one focused more on kind of celebration of the corridor, focused on some specialty lighting under the underpass and some enhancements with entering and exiting the underpass, kind of transition from light to shade to light, and introduced a few more elements that might have these wavy type of deep groove textures into some of the MSE walls, et cetera. All utilizing natural plant material, native plant materials that would be low maintenance and cost effective to the interchange improvements. Here's kind of the final master plan. I want to jump ahead to this image here though that kind of shows some of the details, and I'll walk through that with you. You can start to see some of the design motifs on the patterns and colors that we picked that were complementary of both communities. So some of the limestone buff colors of the natural stone, limestone work that both communities have embraced in some of their gateway themes. Also the terracotta or the Corten steel patterns. It could be reflective of some of the brick or the terracotta improvements or colors that have been incorporated throughout both communities. Those are reflected throughout the enhancement to kind of bring both communities' themes together in maybe a more generic but still complementary way. And then there's some certain details that are incorporated in certain areas based on the traffic type. So for example, as you're going through the underpass, you're going through there pretty quickly, you're wanting to pay attention to everything that's going on. We'd have some bolder, brighter types of enhancements through there. So some of these larger waving type of grooved enhancements on the MSE panels might be more appropriate under there than something that's more intricate like the smaller leaflet pattern. So those are more incorporated into the underpass area, which is located through here. Bold colors associated with the colored concrete on the base underneath there. No plant material can be utilized in there, of course, because there's no exposure to rain or sun. And so there's some vertical lighting elements that are in that area. Potentially one of these concepts where maybe this has some repeating shapes and textures to it for a smaller light base. Out in the median areas, there might be something larger. As we expand through the divergent diamond configuration, we want to create some landform usage and these larger vertical decorative columns to still create the linear aspect of Hickman Road as it starts to, the roadway starts to curve and change as it goes through. So there'll be some vertical elements through here, which I believe we have on, let's see if I can go backwards. There we go. These berming and decorative columns would exist in the very large Hickman Road median areas so that they're larger, more vehicle related and keeps that straight line that goes through the Hickman corridor. We also kind of go down into more detail when we get into the pedestrian areas. So where we have bicyclists or pedestrians interfacing with an area that we can enhance, we look at more textures, more intricate types of patterns, maybe something that's more colorful. So we can start to incorporate some of these design motifs. So for example, we're looking to implement this walnut leaf let into some of the designs associated with maybe an enhancement to the underpass tunnel for bikes and pedestrians. Maybe that gets incorporated into some of the MSE concrete panel walls. It could also be incorporated in potentially some of the bridge work that goes over the top. One thing that I'd like to kind of focus on here for one last discussion is this pedestrian and bike route that comes up and over the ramps. That's kind of a unique situation where you have the ability to put some pedestrians and bicyclists up over and higher, and you can view the corridor from a different vantage point than in your car or at eye level. So there's been some discussion as to whether we would enhance these areas, but we really wanted to focus on the natural transitions and systems. So we took advantage of some of these by creating some detail in the bridge and the entrances to the bridge, but still maintain some viewpoints that would either be reflective of some of the larger mass plantings of the larger islands and the vertical elements, or the bioretention natural systems associated with the stormwater quality aspects of the project. So there might be an opportunity to provide some education on some of those natural systems as they become developed into the project. I wanted to keep a short summary here, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those now or at the end.
Another aspect of the corridor planning efforts involves stormwater management. So with the widening of Hickman and the widening of the interstate, there is a lot of additional pavement, which generates a lot of additional runoff. Using the City of Clive post-construction stormwater management ordinance, a series of water quantity and water quality improvements have been developed in order to address those concerns. On the water quantity side, we identified three locations for above surface detention. And that includes an area in the northwest quadrant of the University interchange and 2 locations at the Douglas Avenue interchange. We tried to incorporate surface detention at the Hickman Road interchange itself, but the infields with the configuration and geometry of those ramps, it's really narrow and doesn't provide the required volumes needed. Taking advantage of the Douglas and the University interchanges, you can see those infields are a lot bigger and allow for more surface storage. Working with the DOT, they are in the planning process for improvements at the Southwest Mix, which may include reconstruction of the University interchange. Having a detention basin constructed now in that interchange may be problematic for future reconstruction of it or a major reconfiguration. So we also identified the kind of the red star is an alternative location to provide surface detention. I should mention that we also looked at underground detention. The cost thereof seemed prohibitive to kind of further develop those options. Water quality improvements include bioswales within these, we call them Will we land on that? Splitter islands? We're gonna call them splitter islands. The relative size is shown here, but the actual configuration of those would be configured in harmony with the landscaping improvements. Along the southern ramps of the interchange are grass swales that have a rock infiltration layer underneath them, allows the water to infiltrate into the groundwater. And the large kind of purple blocks here, there are existing gabion structures in that ditch. Those will be redone, and those also allow the water to slow down and infiltrate into the ground. Finally, at the Hickman interchange, there is some improvements, soil quality restoration, and that's where the topsoil is improved to further allow groundwater infiltration and treatment. This area is further south of the interchange. So Walnut Creek bridges are just at the top of the exhibit here. These small rectangular kind of shaded areas represent regenerative conveyance. Regenerative conveyance is a series of pools that allow the water to pool up and further be treated and infiltrated. Finally, I'd like Wade to come up and discuss project costs associated with the corridor planning efforts, as well as grant opportunities and funding strategy.
Thank you, Nate. Wade Greiman with Snyder and Associates. I serve as the Transportation Business Unit Leader out of our Ankeny office. And I get to help the team with trying to figure out where the funding is going to come from, not just from the city of Urbandale or Clive, but from outside sources. So we've taken a pretty hard look at the cost opinion. We've refined the design to a point where that cost is coming in at just under $8 million for the improvements that we just spoke about on the corridor planning aspects. $4 million of that is for the pedestrian and bike accommodations, including the 2 bridges over the ramps and the pedestrian underpass under I-3580 main line. $3.3 million is allocated for the landscaping and aesthetics package that was presented here this evening, and almost $700,000 for the stormwater management amenities within the that Nate just spoke to. When you take a look at the overall snapshot of the project for the mainline improvements, as well as the Hickman interchange improvements and the improvements along Hickman itself, those roadway improvements and structures are just under $77 million as estimated today. So we're talking about a 10% reflection of the overall construction cost for the project to help enhance this area and tie the 2 communities together with the correlation of amenities. So there are a number of conventional or traditional funding sources that many of these you'll probably recognize as I go through them. They're either administered through IDALS or Iowa DOT or Des Moines Area MPO. STBG is actually an allocation to the Des Moines Area MPO every year, and thus far there have been a few applications for funding for this project. At $2.5 million has been awarded to the overall infrastructure improvement project for the interchange and mainline. Other available sources through the Iowa Department of Transportation include ICAP, which is the Clean Air Attainment Program funds. That focuses on the reduction of emissions from vehicles, translating that to more pedestrian and environmentally friendly transportation modes. Transportation Safety Improvement Program, or TSIP. The maximum award for any intersection improvement would be about $500,000. We've taken a look at both of those, and the ICAP program might be an option for us to pursue as we convert some of those pedestrian or vehicles to pedestrian and bicycle traffic, especially if we have a fairly large contingent of commuters that are bicycling to and from shopping areas or to work functions. TAP is Transportation Alternative Program funds. That is actually taken off of the top of the STBG program. That also is administered through the MPO. And I can say that the TAP program with the Iowa DOT, that is becoming more robust as the infrastructure legislation has been passed earlier this year. There's more federal funds coming into the state. So those coffers are actually increasing statewide, which provides some additional opportunity for us to pursue those for this project. Community attraction and tourism grant funding is through the Iowa Economic Development Authority. And so that is another option for us to pursue. It may be a little bit of a stretch, but we want to make sure we're uncovering every leaf, turning over every rock of potential funding sources. So that is on our list for pursuit. Water Quality Initiative, I mentioned IDALS. That is a grant program. And we put in 150 as a placeholder for now, but we understand that the ceiling has actually been lifted recently. So that number could be higher with the pursuit, but that would go directly toward the best management practices and water quality and quantity amenities that Nate just spoke to. And then there's also loan programs through the SRF program administered within the state. Up to 100% of the water quality project costs can be covered with a loan at a fairly reasonable interest rate. I don't remember what the interest rate is right now. 3. So we've also taken a look, I mentioned the increase in federal funding from DC, and there are a number of different discretionary grant programs that are being released, it seems like on a weekly basis from Washington. A couple of them that have recently been released through their notices of funding opportunity are the Reconnecting Communities. Now that grant is due in October, and Safe Streets and Roads for All, also known as SS4A, that application would be due in mid-September. I'll start with the SS4A one. That has a requirement before you can apply for any capital grants that you have to have a plan in place for all of the metrics that are within the SS4A application process. Safety, complete streets, and so forth and so on. It's a pretty lengthy list. I understand a lot of communities have complete streets policies, but those typically do not fully meet the intention of an SS4A plan. We also understand that Des Moines Area MPO may be pursuing a grant for this plan development for the entire metro. So we would recommend holding off on any applications through the SS4A grant program at this time until that plan is either in place or the city of Urbandale adopts a plan of similar size or a similar nature but smaller in size that's specific to the community here. As it relates to reconnecting communities, there's a number of metrics that we need to meet with the application. One of them is very specific, and it's essentially listed number 1 on the criteria, and that is based on equity, managing gentrification for the neighborhoods, making sure that we're addressing specifically economically distressed areas within the corridor and the improvements that are situated adjacent to those properties. We don't really have that situation in this location. If you can imagine, there are safety components that go into this application. There's other requirements that go into the application, which I'm pretty sure we can fully meet with the intent of the project. But with the number 1 being equity and enhancing opportunities for equal or equitable transportation modes for all demographics, I think that's going to hold us back. So one of the things that we've been doing continually is monitoring the situation with IIJA and those notices of funding opportunity that continue to roll out through DC. We're hearing word on the street that there's additional funding sources that are coming out later this fall. We'll continue to investigate those to make sure that we've got alignment with the improvements of the project and maximize that those dollars that the communities are spending and offsetting those with federal dollars. Typically with federal aid, there is a limit on the total number of federal dollars that can be spent on a project, and it's usually either 50 or 80%. These are 80%. So with the exception of I think it's Reconnecting Communities has a 50% for the capital grant, but you can match that with another 30% of federal funds from other sources like ICAP or other locations that fit. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Nate to talk a little bit about schedule.
Thanks, Wade. I did neglect to put this slide in the presentation. but I did want to touch on project schedule. We have finished up the preliminary design phase, turned those into DOT back in July. Iowa DOT right-of-way department is actively designing the right-of-way and for ultimately purchasing the right-of-way needed for the interchange. There's a public meeting scheduled for late November. I believe we are targeting November 22nd, so the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. After that public meeting, we'll be completing final design and right-of-way purchase, culminating in a first bid package for construction in the late summer, early fall of 2024. Construction is anticipated to wrap up probably in the fall of, or winter of 2028, possibly spilling into the spring of 2029. So it is a rather long-term construction project broken up into several phases. Traffic will be fully maintained on the interstate during the entire construction process, but we will be shutting down Hickman Road for a period of time in order to complete the improvements.
What does that look like? I mean, that's like a massive thoroughfare in the community.
Yeah, so there'll be a series of detour routes planned, as well as you'll still be able to use the ramps. So if you're heading eastbound on Hickman, you'll be able to get onto the interstate going southbound. If you're on the interstate, you'll be able to get off and go one direction.
Right. I guess I'm more concerned about getting under the freeway and going about my business in Clive or Urbandale.
It will be very difficult for a period of about 45 days. And there will be a very strong incentive and disincentive for the contractor to get that work done. But a heads up, there will be some pain during the construction process.
But they could, I mean, really just go up to University or Douglas and come back the other way, really.
Yeah.
Just gonna find alternate routes, just like.
Well, as somebody who lives literally right off of Hickman, I can tell you that this is going to be a giant pain for me personally. But I do have some questions and concerns about this project. Overall, I'm excited. I think it looks absolutely wonderful, and I think this is a much-needed update. But from what I'm hearing in your presentation, there are some questions. How far west on Hickman are you planning on taking 6 lanes?
So with the current project that is under construction, mainly involving the 128th Street intersection, it's converting that corridor to 6-lane facility. So this interchange project, you'll have 6 lanes on Hickman itself from 111th to 128th, where it will narrow back to the existing cross-section at the Walnut Creek Bridge, right here. Roughly where my mouse is. Actually, I don't know if you can see my screen anymore.
There you go.
There'll be 6 lanes from 111th to just past 128th.
And I heard that you're hoping to see increase of traffic from 6,000 to 27,000, right?
Oh, that was our projections with any sort of redevelopment of this area. That would be the projected traffic associated just with that redevelopment area.
Okay. Because I know as somebody, again, my only access in and out of my neighborhood is Hickman. So, and there's currently no stoplight for me to get out. So it's sometimes like playing Frogger. So just knowing that I have a lot of concerns with the potential safety of neighborhoods like mine, where the only entrance and exit is through Hickman, I just want to encourage the DOT to take that into consideration, to have those appropriate stop signals in place to allow for that flow of traffic. The other thing I had was, what else is being done with the consideration of the proximity of this interchange with the West Mixmaster, knowing that that is a lot of heartburn for folks that are trying to get onto Hickman from coming northbound especially, and those who are trying to get onto the interstate going southbound?
So our project has been coordinated with the preliminary planning for the Southwest Mix. Opening day for this project, there will be 3 lanes, 3 basic lanes on the interchange. But we are building for the ultimate 6-lane facility. So there will be dual exits at University, and the ramp itself will be a dual on-ramp that narrows to a single on-ramp with a full auxiliary lane between the interchanges. So right now, when you come on University, it's pretty a narrow area for you to weave and merge into traffic.
Especially when you're trying to fight the backlog of traffic getting onto I-235 going east.
So that'll be extended to meet AASHTO standards, and you'll have a full auxiliary lane between the interchanges, both southbound and northbound. When this project is done and the Southwest mix is done, you'll have full lanes all the way coordinated with the Southwest mix as well.
And when are you guys anticipating approximately for the construction on the Southwest Mixmaster?
I'm going to say 2027 through 2032.
Okay, so this will be done well before,
Yes, this
We
project
get
will be
started.
done basically first, and then very shortly after, there'll be work starting on the Southwest mix.
I think that's all that I had. Well, thank you.
Sorry.
Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you for your time tonight. We really appreciate the opportunity to present this very important project, and we look forward to continuing the process.
Thank you. Yep,
Thank you.
absolutely. Thanks for the detail. It's been involved in a great deal on the MPO side, so I know it's, from my standpoint, it's a very significant project just for the, not only just for our city, but for the entire region, so thanks, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, we will then move on to citizens forum. This is the opportunity to address the council on something that's not a part of tonight's regular agenda. Would anyone like to address the council at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Item 5 then would be to approve the minutes from the July 19 meeting.
Hold on, I gotta get my iPad up and.
Motion by Obrecht. Second by McBurney. Discussion. Please vote. Okay, that passes. And then from the July 26th meeting,
I'll move approval.
motion by Carberry Montgomery,
Second.
second by Kroll. Discussion, please vote. That passes. And then item 6 is our consent agenda. We have 14 items for approval.
So moved.
Motion by Kroll, second by Blake. Discussion, please vote. That passes. Item 7, public hearings versus item 7.1 is a public walkway easement vacation public hearing for Lot 9 of Quail Ridge Plat 2 at 3905 Patricia Drive. The public notice for this is published in the July 22, 2022 Des Moines Register. Are there any objections to that? Notice is published.
There were none.
Ask for a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Motion by Blake, second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. All right, that passes. Introducing this is our Community Development Director, Steve Franklin. Steve?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, all. This is the first of 2 easement vacations we have tonight. There is nothing unusual about either one of these. We get a number of these every year. They are generally in situations that are in the older part of town, where back at that time, when easements were created, there wasn't quite as much engineering or forethought put in at that time in terms of separating walkways from easements. Everything was kind of a combined situation. So this is the lot in question here at 3905. And in this particular case, there's a walkway that runs east-west and another one that takes off and runs south. And there's a 10-foot easement both on 3905 and then also on the lot to the south at 3901. You can see there's a little bit of a shed there and then a walkway. In this particular case, the homeowner wants to replace a fence that's been there for a long, long time. And so our standard practice with this, when the permit application comes in, is to make sure to look at the plat to see if there is an easement. In this particular case, there is. So in this instance, our policy for as long as I've been here, I think about 20 years or so, is that we want to have 3 feet clear, a minimum of 3 feet clear from the edge of that trail to where the fence is going to go, to allow handlebars for bikes and just get some clearance in there. So in this particular case, if we vacate the north 6 feet of that easement, then it keeps the fence and the shed out of the easement and gives us that minimum 3-foot clearance. So staff recommends approval of the vacation for this to allow the fence to be replaced. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions for Steve on this item? Okay, we are in public hearing on this item. Would anyone like to address the council on this? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Motion by Blake,
Second.
second by Kroll. Discussion, please vote. Okay, that passes. There are 2 items for consideration. Motion by McBurney. Second by Blake. Discussion, please vote. Okay, that passes. Okay, motion by McBurney. Second by Blake. Discussion, please vote.
Yes.
All right, that passes. Moving then to item 7.2 is consider the public pedestrian easement vacation for Lot 2 Meredith Park Plat 1 at 4723 80th Place. The public notice for this was also published, no, this was published on the July 29, 2022 Urbandale or Des Moines Register. Ask any objections to that notice is published.
There were none.
Ask for a motion, a second to open this public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Kroll, second by Blake. Discussion, please vote. Okay, that passes. Steve?
Okay, a very similar situation. Property in question is 4723. You can see the sidewalk that runs on the south side of the parcel, or excuse me, runs along the east side, south side of the parcel. And in this situation, again, if we vacate 6 feet, it will create a situation where, in this case, we've got 4 feet of clearance. And the reason for 4 feet here, our minimum is 3. In this case, the neighbors directly to the south here at 4719, about 2 years ago, went through this exact same process. You can see their existing fence right there. And so in this case, 6 feet will give the 4-foot clearance, and then it matches up with the neighbor immediately to the south. So staff recommends approval of this vacation as well. Be happy to answer questions.
I just have a basic question, or maybe it's not basic, but, so they changed it 4 years ago, we're changing this one now. Why don't we just, like, in a section, change the easements along an entire section at once? We don't have to repeatedly come back.
We have done that in a couple of occasions. I can think of one in the Meadows over off of 86th Street where we had a couple here and then a couple up there, and it made sense to go ahead and do several of them. We certainly are always watching that, and if that's something that seems to make sense, we will consider going ahead and doing that. It's, you don't want to do something you don't have to do, but if it makes sense and they're kind of getting spotty through there, we have done that in a couple of locations.
And I have a request on future ones of these, though. These fun little maps would be really nice if they're in the packets.
Oh, okay, sure.
I like lots of maps in the packet. Hey, I saw that eye roll, AJ.
No,
There were a couple of other items I thought that could use maps as well in this packet.
Duly noted, yeah. It's pretty easy to include those, so no problem. Yep, okay, yeah, picture's worth 1,000 words, right?
We like cartoons.
Yeah.
All right. All right. We are in public hearing on this item. Would anyone like to address the council on this item? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by Kroll, second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. Okay, that passes. two items for consideration here.
Move to approve resolution 205-2022.
Motion by Kroll. Second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. Was that McBurney or Blake? I didn't, okay, just want to make sure.
I was quiet, I'm sorry.
I just didn't look up and it sounded similar. So. All right.
Move to approve council letter 7170.
Motion by Kroll, second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. Okay, that passes. All right, thank you. That moves on to item 8, to establish public hearings versus item 8.1, is establish a public hearing for vacating a portion of a sidewalk easement on Lot 14, Gulfview Estates Plat 3.
So moved.
Motion by Kroll. Second by Blake. Discussion, please vote. It passes. Item 8.2 is to establish the public hearing for the sanitary sewer right-of-way easement vacation at Lot 1, Urbandale Marketplace 3, Plat 4.
So moved.
Motion by Kroll. Second by Blake. Discussion, please vote. Okay, that passes. Item 8.3 is to establish a public hearing for the development agreement with the Aurora Business Park 2 LLC.
So moved.
Motion by Kroll, second by Blake. Discussion, please vote. That passes. Item 8.4 is establish a public hearing for the development agreement with Centerpoint Business Park 2 LLC.
So moved.
Motion by Kroll, second by Blake. Discussion, please vote. Okay, that passes. Item 9, planning and zoning items versus item 9.1, the Barrett Ridge Plat 1 final plat at 142nd Street and North Valley Drive. Steve?
Okay, this is the next phase in what was the Roble property. As it develops from west to east, it was this entire mile here from 142nd Street all the way out to 156th Street. Was sold and turned into a PUD, and development has kind of progressed from the west as we move here to the east. This particular piece is what's outlined in here in red, so immediately adjacent to 142nd Street. We'll come in with a new street that will connect to the existing street, and let me go back out here to the actual plat itself. So here is the plat. Here's 142nd Street. North Valley Drive will come in and connect. The lots on the south side of North Valley Drive have a minimum lot width of 75 feet to match the lots that were existing down here in the Bent Creek Meadows and Bent Creek Ridge developments. And then the lots on the north side of North Valley Drive, so these lots here, have a 65-foot minimum width as we then transition into an area to the north that's going to be a combination of townhomes and maybe some multifamily. So transitioning those lot widths. There are a total of 37 single-family lots that this will create. Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval, subject to items noted. Would be happy to answer questions.
All right, thank you, Steve. Any questions on this?
Move to approve resolution 201-2022.
Motion by Kroll, second by Blake. Discussion, please vote. Okay, that passes. Item 10, regular agenda items versus item 10.1 is consider ordinance number 2022-11, and Chief Johansson will introduce this for us. Chief?
Mayor, members, council, got a couple of ordinances that we did a little work on and updating. To start off with was the Chapter 75 bicycle and recreational vehicles. Closed. The main reason we got into this one was state laws changed as far as recreational vehicles, and they're now allowed to operate on gravel roads in the counties and cannot be restricted like they were before. That posed some questions to us. We were getting a lot of calls about whether it was now permissible to drive recreational vehicles like golf carts, UTVs, ATVs on city streets. And the changes in the law did not affect our ability to restrict by ordinance the city. So nothing really changed for us, but as we were looking at the ordinance, we noticed that, or I noticed that it really only addressed ATVs. And if you look at a definition of an ATV, that's something that you straddle the seat and has handlebars. It didn't really apply to UTVs, which are kind of the new rage, if you will, the bucket seat, steering wheel type vehicle that a lot of people have now. And our definition of ATVs was also a little bit outdated compared to what the state code was. So I just went through and updated the ATV description and added off-road utility vehicles. That's basically what a UTV, the state calls them off-road utility vehicles. I also added off-road motorcycles as part of the update because that's in the state code as well. Again, not allowed to operate on city streets, just as always. I did add a couple exceptions while I was in there because I got to thinking that if we don't allow golf carts to drive on the street, that I probably should have been at the end of the parade writing some tickets. But so we are adding the exception that you, not only you, but anybody that operates in a parade would be able to do so at speeds of 10 mile an hour and under and those kinds of things. And then I also added a small section that allows us to perform city services on the streets with these types of vehicles. So really didn't change a lot, just added a couple little exceptions and updated some definitions of what these vehicles are. And they are changing rapidly, as you're all aware, with motorized scooters, motorized bikes, all that. We didn't address any of that because there's still some discussions going on metro-wide about how to handle motorized bicycles and those types of things. So we're going to let that ripen a little bit before we alter our code any further as far as bicycles goes.
What, you just said you weren't talking about this, but my question is really about the scooters. I've just heard a lot of complaints about general ruckus being caused by generally teenage boys on those scooters. And I've seen it myself, but, you know, just riding down the middle of the street incredibly fast, no helmets. It doesn't help that I live close to Waukee that has the rental scooters. I think that's really upped the desirability of those. But do you see us putting any, I hate to be a fun hater, but I'm, you know, looking at it from a mom perspective and safety, you know, blowing through stoplights and stop signs. And do you foresee us implementing any restrictions on the scooters?
Well, honestly, I believe we could probably enforce on the sidewalks and trails now, motorized scooters and bicycles. It's just something we're not doing. We haven't seen a huge problem with it, a lot of complaints. If we see them out in the street, we address them because it's a bigger safety concern there, obviously. But
yeah,
you're seeing a ton of them on the trails, and technically they're not allowed on our trails. So, but we have not addressed that. So that's obviously direction that council can give us, but it's, you know, I don't know. It's one of those things where you don't want to be the fun haters, right? We don't want to be the fun haters as the police, but we also want to make sure people stay safe out there. So if, obviously we encourage people, if they're seeing unsafe behavior and unsafe speeds on these motorized scooters and bicycles, that then we need to be called, and so we can try to address it.
Is that being addressed though? And I know I've talked to Carl Voss about this model bike ordinance that they're trying to put together as far as trying to put something together on different classes of e-bikes and everything else.
And that is discussions that Jan is involved in, and she's floated me an ordinance or a model ordinance a while back. I'm going to say 3 or 4 months ago, And I expressed some concerns because some of it went against state law, quite frankly. And it addresses bicycles on the roadways as well, not just on trails and things like that. So I expressed some concerns that some proposals were basically in violation of state law. And I thought they needed to at least match that up or get the state law to update first, and then we can implement. But I'd hate to have an ordinance that allows something that state law does not. I see that as a huge contradiction that we wouldn't want to get involved in. So that's what I gave her those suggestions, and she was going back to that group. Now, I will tell you that tomorrow, I have a meeting with Jan, and we're going to be discussing these motorized scooters, that program that is in Waukee, because they're wanting to address Urbandale and maybe see if they can expand. So I don't know exactly, I don't know any details on it at all, but we are gonna have a meeting about it tomorrow, first meeting we're gonna have on it. So I think they're coming, so.
I look forward to hearing that proposal. I have a lot of concerns about the safety, because the primary, I would love to use one. I would wear a helmet. I would be safe. But many of those folks are not, they're pretty young, not wearing a helmet.
Right.
But it's an easy way to get to your friend's house or to the come and go.
Right.
So I guess, I don't know, there's a lot of pros and cons to it, but we'll wait to hear what you have to say. But I guess I would say if they're using them on our trails, I mean, some re-education is probably a good idea from your standpoint, but.
And I'm not sure if you want that to come from the police department or from Park and Recreation, really. I don't know. I mean, we can talk about that, and we're willing to do whatever we need to assist, but yeah. You hate to quell any of that because it's a good way to get around, and it reduces all these emissions and everything else that we're trying to do. So, electric vehicles, scooters, motorcycles, bikes, all those things are things that are going to expand here in the near future, so.
And to be honest, too, when it comes to those trails, I mean, you can get a pedal bike as fast as some of those things.
Sure.
So, I mean, anyway, I'm just throwing that out.
An electric assist bike versus a true electric bike. There's a
Right.
total speed difference there.
There's so
And
many
hoverboards,
variations.
and we talk about golf carts, they still roam certain streets every now and then. So
Yeah.
it's one of those that right now, and I know with like the scooters, there's a lot of geo-locating that you can, prohibit from certain areas too. But you can see every monument in the DC Mall area in about 45 minutes on an electric scooter, so.
Right.
Yeah, I won't.
But like I said, we're not addressing any of those issues with this update. This is just to get the ATV and off-road utility vehicles definitions updated and the two minor exceptions for parades and city services introduced into our ordinance.
All right.
Any
Thanks,
questions on that?
And I guess with that exceptions, were there any other exceptions you kind of debated but said not yet?
Other than allowing them in the street, allowing golf carts, allowing ATVs, UTVs to operate on the city streets, that's really the only other exception out there. I can tell you from some discussions on a Chiefs forum, the Iowa Chiefs forum, that some of the smaller communities are allowing golf carts and those types of vehicles, electric vehicles, and even not just electric, but the small gas vehicles on their streets. And most of them have reported little or no issues. But I don't think they're Urbandale. And I would hate to see a golf cart going down 86th Street or Douglas.
Right.
So then where do you restrict them to? Not on your main thoroughfare. It's not as easy for us. And I can see, and you talk about keeping people safe. I don't see, we already had, I know this incident because of a connection to back home, but there was now that ATVs or UTVs are allowed to operate on gravel roads, there was an incident up by Cambridge just recently where the gravel road dust was so bad that the next vehicle didn't see the UTV and hit it head on. And one young man was killed, and the other one was in really bad shape. I don't know if he survived or not. So those are the types of things you're going to start having if you allow these types of vehicles on the road with automobiles. There's going to be tragedy, and that's what I want to prevent happening in Urbandale. I get the want to have golf carts going around in neighborhoods and stuff, But how do you restrict that and keep people safe when you have, 5,000-pound cars driving down the road with them?
Right.
So it's a give and take there, and something you guys can think about, but.
Well, it's like the Phoenix area, Mesa area, there's a lot of UTVs on the road down there, but they're going into the hills, they're going into the playground basically for them.
Yeah.
And we just don't have that kind of area for UTVs to head to.
And I know there's some private communities like in Florida that they drive golf carts everywhere. That is the main mode of operation. And I mean, the speeds are really restricted and those types of things. So something you guys can think about and give direction on. But my concern is the safety on at least on our main thoroughfares, for sure.
All right, thank you, Chief. Any other questions or comments on that? Is there a motion?
Move to approve ordinance 2022-11, first reading.
Okay, motion by Obrecht,
Second.
second by Kroll. Discussion, please vote. Okay, that passes. Item 10.2 is consider the purchase of the police department portable radios.
We got one more ordinance on that last one, and I don't know if we'd have to do them separate or not. They're kind of combined, so I'm sorry.
The updates to both chapters are combined in a single ordinance, but certainly we can still discuss if there
So I
were.
still need to discuss chapter 110 update, so I don't know if they got combined or.
They got combined into one motion, so.
Oh, I'm
it's-
sorry.
So, so we're ready for the second reading on that one, but if you want to tell us some more about it.
Sorry about that, I didn't know how that
I'm
worked.
sorry. Well, why don't you, we've already passed, but let's just hear about it, I guess. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Sorry about
so this is, again, the state code has updated. So we just adopted what the state code had updated. And really what it does is it allows us to hold the owner of a liquor license responsible for patrons and managers, owners, employees that are out in their parking lot and the adjacent public area around their business if they're associated with that business. And then for things like discharging a firearm, assault with a dangerous weapon, and rioting, it allows our city attorney to file a suit against them in district court to get their liquor license and hold them accountable. In the past, a lot of these establishments would say, they're not inside my business. I can't control what happens in the parking lot or, in the street in front of mine. But this allows that to extend a little bit if you can tie those patrons and that continued problem to that liquor license.
Can we do any public awareness or just education of our liquor establishments to let them know of this? And would that potentially help us in the future?
We did not, no.
I mean,
It's state law now, so it really, we can enforce it by state code. We could just charge it under the state. We just added it to our ordinance to make sure that we had that we mirror the state code in our ordinance for liquor law violations. So we just updated it to and continue to mirror that.
And my assumption is if there's an education, I'm assuming these liquor licenses, these wine, these beer owners have an association of some sort that represents them, and they probably put out the educational.
Maybe
We as a city can do it, but, I think there's probably an entity that's probably already doing it.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out.
We can.
I mean, I'm thinking if there's particularly challenging places, that it might be just hey, preemptively, we just want you to know that this is now law.
Or work through the chamber. I mean,
Yeah,
a lot of
through
them
the
are members of the chamber and just helping alerting them, hey, let your members know accordingly. We are mirroring state law on this and intend to enforce it.
We are very fortunate. We just don't have a lot of problem bars in our city. We just don't have them. So,
We haven't had for a long time,
no, it's pretty good.
since Razzmatazz. I don't want to even bring that name up anymore, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the.
That's what I was wondering about.
Any questions on that?
Well, if you want to change it, we have 2 more readings, so.
Okay.
That's already passed. Thanks, Chief. Sorry about that. All right, then item 10.2 is consider the purchase of the police department portable radios.
So our current radios are more than 10 years old. planned upgrades in Westcom and the state infrastructure are going to require some increased tolerances within the radios. Our current radios, they say, will still work, but they're anticipating they'll have more failures and be less effective, less range. So the other part of this is Motorola has sent notice that they're no longer going to support the current radios that we use, and that will be effective December 31st of 2023. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't be able to get them serviced, but eventually what they're telling us is they're phasing those out. And yeah, we'll still be able to go down to Electronic Engineering or other vendors and still get parts, used parts, those types of things like you do with any type of software or hardware that is being phased out for a while beyond that date. But it's time to start moving on this and getting these replaced. State contract allows us to purchase the radios, the portable radios, at 50% off of list price. That contract is valid until April of 2025. The strange thing about that, I thought, with this contract was where it normally sets a price, this sets 50% off a list price. Well, you can imagine that list price is continually to increase with pandemic-related shipping issues, parts, and those types of things. So we are up to $4,053 a piece, and that is 50% off the list price. So these portable radios are getting very expensive. With that, we had budgeted in this current budget, we had budgeted expecting to replace 20 for around $70,000. With that money, we're going to be able to only replace 18, and it's still going to push us over just a little bit, 72,964.44. We will make up the difference in the radios and the budgets over the next 2 years, but our plan is to do a third, and we'll have all of our radios replaced over the next 3 budget cycles. So this will be the first of 3 radio replacements that we'll be doing.
If they're going up, how much have they been going up historically?
I'm not sure about that. So
I mean, does it make sense to look at it to budget better for next year to just do it in 2 years and bite the bullet and get them done in 2?
potentially, because we originally thought the price was set in the state contract, and what we found out is that it's not. So we did not know that going into this until I wrote up this council letter. We thought the price was set in the contract and it wouldn't change until 2025. But that was not the case when we dug into it further. So they can change the price basically, and we'll get 50% off of that price, whatever the increase is over the next 2 years. So something I'll talk to AJ about for this next budget cycle. Maybe we want to do more of them now instead of later.
Whatever you think best makes sense, but if they're going up, maybe it's better to bite the bullet and budget for it next year for the remainder.
And then I guess my secondary question was, from a radio usage standpoint, it's 54-ish radios. Is that enough? Do you ever run short on radios as you're going through this replacement cycle to need to expand them?
If we replace, so the ones we're replacing now, if we do that cycle, the 3 years, or if we speed that up, we should be through everybody and have enough radios to get us through, yes. And these first ones are going to replace, we're actually going to take the ones that we're currently using and move them down to the reserves, because they're even using an older version of the radios than we are currently. So that'll get us by for a few more years with the reserves, but we're also going to have to replace their radios as well. So yeah, there might be a few more in number when we come to the end of this.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Move to approve resolution 203-2022.
Motion by Kroll.
Second.
Second by Carberry Montgomery. Discussion, please vote.
What? Oh, whoops. Yeah, let's back up. Let's do council letter 7160
Okay.
instead.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Motion by Kroll. Second by Carberry Montgomery.
Yes, absolutely.
Any further discussion? Please vote.
Oh, I didn't vote, sorry.
Okay, that passes. Item 10.3 is consider the professional services agreement for the school crossing guard program. Chief?
So this is our annual crossing guard contract with All City Management Services. It's our 3rd year that we are in partnership with them. We've had no issues or concerns in the past service, and really, really a good partnership that we've had with them. The school pays 50%, the schools pay 50% of the costs. And one location, we pay 25%. Windsor Heights pays 25% and the school pays 50%. 13 total locations, same as last year. Estimated total cost is $48,543.20. The city's estimated cost on that, taking into account 50% and 12 of the locations and 25% in the one, is $71,415 be our cost. It's a slight increase over last year as they've raised their hourly rate that they're charging us. From the 2021-22 rate was $30.23 per hour. And this next contract will be $31.74 per hour. The reason given for the increase was obviously they're having to offer a little bit more pay to get people to do the job. We're seeing that in just about every aspect of our economy right now. And yeah, so it's up just a little bit, but I thought it was pretty reasonable based on the shortage of workers and probably how hard it is to fill those spots.
All right.
Was there any times that you guys had to step in and fill in for them?
We do, but it's
How
not.
often does that happen?
Not very often.
Okay.
It was not very often. I didn't get the exact number, but it wasn't very often. Every once in a while, they're short a guard and didn't show up or had a last minute cancellation, and we step in and fill that role. And it was very rare that we had to do that.
Great, great.
As we bring new schools online, I'm assuming this will also just continue to increase over time as like Joaquin.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your question.
As we bring new schools online or as the districts bring new schools online, I'm assuming we should plan on these numbers to increase.
It depends. Depends on where the school is, but yes, over time, this is going to increase for sure. So like our Radiant out there,
Right.
Everybody drives that. There's no sidewalks going to that school right now, so we haven't had to deal with a guard out there yet. But eventually, when those neighborhoods fill in, there may be streets out there that will need a guard to cross. So that's where we get with the pedestrian safety committee and engineering and the schools and determine where they need guards and where the best places are. That's how we figure that out. I do have the list right here. If you didn't have it in front of you, it was in the packet, I believe, or it should have been in the council letter there. But yeah, so we get with those groups and we don't determine where the guards are. They figure that out through that process. But yes, when we build that new elementary at 156 in Waterford, there's going to be more guards needed eventually.
And Valerius is another.
Valerius,
So that will
yep.
be another one, yeah. Just something to keep in mind.
Yep.
It changes every year, and then we
Okay.
adjust our contract with them.
Good to know. I'm going to move to approve Resolution 203-2022.
I'll second that one as well.
Cole, second by Carberry Montgomery. Discussion, please vote.
I would add that not all cities do this. So Waukee doesn't provide, the city of Waukee doesn't provide any guards, any payment or anything to the Waukee schools. We've always done it as far as I've ever known, but I don't know how that arrangement ever came to be. I have no idea.
How,
And the Waukee schools that are in Urbandale, we do, and Waukee pays 50%, but the rest of the schools, I don't know how they handle them. I checked with the chief over there, and they have nothing to do with it. They don't have guards.
yeah, that was a Bob Layton and Greg Robinson agreement years ago.
So something to think about.
But they have the choice of whether or not they want them too, right? I mean, if they said we don't want them, we wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I don't know what would happen if the school said, we're not paying for 50% of it anymore. Then it would be, probably come back to you guys to decide, and vice versa. If we decided we weren't going to, or the city decided we weren't going to pay for it, I don't know what would happen to the arrangement. I don't know. It's just always been in place. I don't know how that came to be, but West Des Moines does it. I mean, there are communities that do it. Don't think we're the only ones, but.
When the school used to give all their public rec funds to the city, this was part of the agreement of that.
Yeah.
And so that was, as that unwound, this stayed in place, I guess.
I'm very happy that we do it. I think the places that we do it, it's very necessary. I know as part of cost-cutting measures, Waukee is changing their busing, the distance for free busing, so that may impact the number of kids, you know, crossing some of these busier streets, so.
I think it goes towards, sorry to interrupt you, but
No,
I think it goes towards you guys' vision of, you know, you want people to walk to school instead of having their parents drive them and stuff. So I think it's an important program to keep, they don't feel their kids can cross the street safely, they're definitely not gonna let them walk to school. So I think it's part of that reduction in automobile traffic and all those things that we're trying to do to reduce energy costs and greenhouse gases and all those things. This is probably a good program to keep that going.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Item 10.4 is consider the design services agreement for the 2023 community entrance sign project. John, answer any questions if there are.
Letter 7164.
Motion by Blake,
Second.
second by Kroll. Discussion, please vote. All right, that item passes. Item 10.5 is consider the estoppel certificate and agreement for the Metro Ice facility, and our city attorney, Bob Layden, will lead us through this. Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me, members of the council. What you have in front of you tonight is our agreement to approve this, what we call this estoppel agreement. What that basically is whereby the city acknowledges that the lease at Des Moines Rink Partners is current on their lease. And we basically sat on this for over a year. We've had some issues over there. They've now passed the improvements inside the rink or the building itself. And most of the parking lot, not quite all, but has been repaved pursuant to the lease. The current lease, so you know, has 23 years left to run. It's $1 a year. And basically what this agreement requires us to do is just notify the bank if they are in default under the terms of the lease. And we've had this before. This has been in effect since 2016. And we're just doing away with that and have a new one because they're borrowing some money from Central State Bank. And so they've required us to sign on this. So we've worked on it and Matt Whitaker has been instrumental in getting this accomplished for us, and I've dealt with Matt for over a year now on this. Be happy to answer any questions. John's been involved in it, Jan Herkey, the staff, so.
So the question I have is, am I not going to lose the bottom of my car now when I drive into that ice rink? I haven't looked recently.
Yes, that is correct. Basically, we looked at the parking lot and kind of gave them a map of here's where you should patch. They've done over 50% of those. And again, for the most part, I'd say they've got the most severe ones. There's a few that I would say are in the back of the lot that could use it. But, you know, myself driving through there, I think it's much better than what it used to be. And again, they've committed within the next year to get those other ones done, but it's a lot better than it was.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than a bunch of 16-year-olds trying to get out of that.
Like John said, June 30th of 2023, we gave him an extension to get the lot done. And internally, we had some estimates as to what it would cost per square yard for concrete. And I can tell you they've paid a substantial amount already to get the lot done.
All right.
With that, be happy to answer any other questions.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. With that, there are two motions, two items for consideration.
Move the termination of the current estoppel certificate of amendment and agreement.
Motion by Obrecht, second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. That passes.
And move resolution 195-2022.
Motion by Obrecht, second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. That item passes. Moving on then to mayor and council items. Adam?
Good.
Nothing to, okay. Amy?
Good.
Okay. Bridget?
Well, obviously I have something to say. So I think I missed this on the last couple meetings, but I wanted to congratulate the Waukee Northwest girls softball team for winning the state tournament in their first year of existence. And also congratulations to our Johnston boys baseball team for their state championship. And I'm sure I missed another championship in there too. I think maybe DCG, but I don't know if we send any actual kids to DCG.
Boys, I think.
So, but it was a very successful season for Urbandale kids in their softball and baseball. As we were talking about maps, I think one of the areas tonight where in the establishing of public hearings for the economic development incentives, those maps with locations on those would be really helpful. Even in setting public hearings and then when we have the public hearing. And then I read through the update of the strategic plan in the consent agenda, and I guess I'd like to see if we could have a discussion about that. I feel like that was one of the things, at least that I expressed when we went through the strategic plan is, while I appreciate the updates that are put in the consent agenda, I'd actually like to have a conversation about what is happening and just touching base on our big picture items that we want to see happening.
To piggyback on that, the other piece is the timelines for the strategic plan items, which I think Curtis said was in the master strategic plan document. Is that accurate? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Matt?
Just kudos to all the events that occurred throughout our community, National Night Out, all of those. I do want to bring up something that I had been pondering about related to dogs, of all topics. I reviewed our ordinance, I wonder why. I reviewed our ordinance on dog leash laws a little bit, and then there, again, we have exceptions for individual, we allow a dog to not be on a leash if they can heel. And the dog that bit me was unleashed, obviously couldn't heel. So I don't know whether we want to address just eliminating that, because I think there are some dogs, but what I would like to consider is that for large public events, that all dogs need to be leashed and make that a requirement. That would be something I would be interested in looking at. So we could, especially at the parade and other events or party in the park or something like that, we could enforce it a little bit more, because people could say, oh, you know, this dog, obviously they're tame and we don't have to worry about it. So that's something I would like to look at. Maybe a compromise where we're not eliminating the ability to have a dog off the leash, but in big public gatherings, we can have a little bit more.
I guess I'd like to know what other communities have for off-leash time at all, because, you know, are they allowed to be off? I mean, my dog can be on a leash, but if your dog is not on a leash, you know, all bets are off. So, I mean, I guess I would like to see if, what other communities, if we're in line with other communities with, I mean, because anybody can say their dog can heel, and they might heel for you, but when there's a dog that they don't like, who knows what's gonna happen?
I can tell you specifically, because I had asked this question to AJ, and he sent me he sent me the cities. So Ankeny, Clive, Johnston, and West Des Moines all have ordinances that are similar to ours. And then Windsor Heights, Altoona, and Des Moines do not allow the heel exception that we have right now.
And this came up with another incident actually up in Dunlap as well. Is that?
The Arboretum, I believe, over in that area. Yeah.
So at the very minimum, I would want it for public events, but I would be open to discussing even broader. But I don't know if the rest of the council, but I can say because we discussed it a little bit at the 4th of July celebration about the parade in particular, and I brought up that I would like, from the city perspective, to have that, and then from the parade perspective, I'm going to require it that nobody can be on the street with their dog. So, just to, so, and I want to give the tools to our law enforcement in particular to make sure that they can enforce it. So that's what I'm trying to look at. So,
I guess I would be open to discussion on getting rid of the heel exception. I don't,
I guess
It's a hard one.
that's a hard one, because behind our house, there is a lot of dogs that run that area with the heel exception. I mean, I could probably count 20 dogs a day that are going through there that way, and we've never had an issue. And so there's quite a few owners that do ball training, hunting training, things that way with very controlled dogs, and we had one issue basically. So I think we're trying to find a solution for a problem that's not totally there yet. I mean, the large group, yes, I think that's good, but as far as every day, I see a lot of dogs that are well-behaved every day behind my house.
I question if it's not a large issue because people aren't reporting it because it's just impossible to enforce.
So,
There might be some of that going on too, but it sounds like a bigger conversation as well.
Let's get it reviewed, and we can have it for discussion.
all right. And that's all I have. Thank
All
you.
right, thanks, Matt. Larry?
I did disappointingly at the National Night Out in my donut eating contest, so I apologize to everybody up here. In my representation, yes, only 3.
Who did win?
I think that was strategic.
I was not last. I was tied for last. I just want to point that out. Battle of the Burbs, we placed second, very well represented overall. I know myself and my wife are going to push us to win it next year, I hope. We're going to try very hard. Other than that, that's all I really got.
Okay.
Lions Park last night.
Oh, Lions Park, yeah, thank you. That was actually something I had written down. Very well attended. I thought that it was put together very well by Jan and her staff. I liked the format personally, being able to go in and see the different concepts and be able to mark down the ones that you liked. I don't know if that's material that we will have available on the website, but I would highly encourage that if we can get those 4 concepts and the different concepts for the add-ons, added onto the website so we can direct folks out there. And I know I personally was provided some feedback that I passed along to Jan as comments. So if anybody has feedback, by all means, pass it along. I know Jan was taking that information and marking it down, so
All right.
that's all I got.
All right, thanks, Larry. Just a few things on the Hickman update we had tonight, just as a clarification. I was looking online, because I know we're talking about that tomorrow at MPO Exec on the Safe Streets for All program. And I think we're going to be, it's determined, I think, I still am trying to learn the whole process, but there's a planning part of it, and then there's an implementation part of the grants, right? John's nodding his head. So I think the MPO needs to first do the planning part and getting that done. I think we're going to go for some funds to do that, and then the implementation later on a metro-wide basis. So the bottom line is, yeah, there's still some funds available, but what the MPO is doing will not preclude Urbandale from trying to go for some grants on that too. And obviously, I know staff and we'll be looking at every avenue to try to reduce the cost and leverage funds from a lot of places. So, and I'll certainly look at that from the MPO as well. So, all right, with that, we're at item 12.1, and that is to go into closed session pursuant to Iowa Code 21.51-I regarding the city manager's evaluation. Ask for a motion and a second on that. Motion by Blake, second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. Thanks, Bob. Okay, sure. All right, that passes. We will take a 3-minute break and we'll reconvene. And then we'll just find you in your office when you're.